evening and welcome to this edition of the Island Stacks Football Show. I'm your host, Earl Basting. Joining me as co-hosts, Maceo Dill and Garrett Punchy Dill. And tonight we have our guest in Gary Adams, the head coach of Vasco. Gary, since you've been the coach, you've had kind of a stop-start way of going about things. But what we wanted to do with the announcement from the government recently that football and other sports can return to some sort of competitiveness around October 23rd, we wanted to talk to a coach about what they've been doing with their team in the lead up to if and when the season starts, because it's important to find out what you've been doing to try and keep the players going in so much uncertainty.
Yeah, and I think honestly that uncertainty has been the biggest obstacle of getting players to stay motivated, of putting in the effort. You know, it's always exciting when that initial season kickoff date comes. Everybody's gearing up for it. Preseason comes, and you got the practice games. So when that news bomb drops that they're unsure when the season can start, immediately players kind of drop off. So I found you lost a lot of the physical preseason running that guys are doing, the togetherness. So what I've done mostly, I mean, obviously following the restrictions that we can, is just basic, I hate to say it, like little technical passing drills, some type of patterns of play, just to keep some type of mental capacity and physical going in. But it's just hard to drive guys to like physically put everything in to get a game situation when you're not allowed to have any real game practices, essentially, or drills that allow competition. You know, they say like there's nothing like game fitness. So when you don't get a chance to get pushed, it's hard to keep the guys going. So,
Punch, I'm going to come to you because as a former coach and still a student of the game, how would you manage this period? I mean, if you were coaching a team, hypothetically, you were coaching an under-23 team. How would you kind of work your way through and ensuring that you don't have the problem that Gary has of keeping those players motivated because you've got something already in place?
It must be very difficult. Hey, I applaud all these coaches. I applaud them. What I would do would be maybe, Gary, I want to ask you is how many players are you allowed to have at your session if you're going to have a coaching session?
So, yeah, we're allowed 20, but I think the stipulation was because Vasco is fortunate where we get to do train at BAA, so we do have access to the lights, which makes it a little bit convenient to keep training, in the evenings. But we're supposed to have 2 groups of 10, including the coach. So you might as well say 9 players to half of a field.
Okay, that's the first thing. I know how many I can work with. So my thought would be if I'm going to work with certain months and I contact and say, look, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to have 8 or 9 players, maybe just some ball work. But the most important thing is just being around them, just staying connected. I think that's what would be. Because guys, I mean, let's face it, all of us are going through this. Guys want to get out and train. They want to get out and do something. But because of the breakdown and what's happening with the COVID restrictions, it's difficult. So this is what I'm answering your question now. I would probably have to do maybe 8. I have 8 of them together, do some exercises, some, just ball work, maybe some physical work. I have maybe have a physical coach come on it. And I would just do something just to keep them motivated. And the first thing I will make sure I do is stay in contact with them. That's first and foremost. And I'm going to try to do it as often as I can, relating to the work schedule and what they're about, because this has all changed so much. Right, I mean, right. So that's what I would do.
Yeah. Gary, you mentioned something, and I'm going to let Maceo come in a second. You mentioned something about losing the preseason stuff because of the having to shut it all down and so forth, and then you were allowed to come back with X amount. But how long do you think it would take for you to get the players back to where you would want them to start the season?
I mean, speaking specifically of where I think Vasco was to prove where we are now, minimum 3 to 4 weeks, minimum. And I would say that based on twice a week of training sessions, you're going to have that first week of getting everybody back together. The The second week, you kind of take a step above that where they start to push each other, have a laugh, and shake out those little bit of cobwebs. And personally, by week 3, it's kind of, in my opinion, from a fitness perspective, by week 3, it's kind of now the players should be pushing each other a little bit more. And this is all saying based on that nobody's done anything for the last 2-3 weeks since governments put the restrictions in place. I'm gonna, fingers crossed, hope my players have been doing something on their own. I think every coach is probably hoping their players do something when they're not training, just to keep fitness up. But I would realistically say three weeks should be a good bit of time to at least make a little bit of a comeback to get the ball rolling.
Definitely. And Maceo, obviously, as a former coach as well, and still in and around the game, do you think that 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks is viable? Is what is needed for the safety to return? Because we don't want players come back too early and then you've got a bunch of injuries and you find yourself back in a position of shortage of players.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky thing for all these coaches now, because part of doing well in the game is managing that piece of players, when they're fit, when they're not fit. So that's a big part of having everybody ready at the same time. So definitely in this period of no football, that's the real deal. The real deal is how do I manage somebody to make sure that injuries don't happen. And if you've got a big squad, then you have a benefit. If you don't have a big squad, which most clubs are not going to have a big squad, then that is the real piece. The real piece. Like I reflect on my time at North Village, and I look at players that were important, like Jamiko Jennings and Keith Jennings. Keith Jennings, historically before that, never finished the season because of injury. So I had to figure out how to manage him throughout the season. Jamiko didn't finish the season because of injury. I had to figure out how to manage Jamiko to come in the January period where it was needed, where his skill set was needed in that. So that becomes a very important piece. Now, for these coaches, that's where the focus is now. That's where the focus is. And just reflecting back on that original question you asked about what could you have done in during these periods, for me, it would have been a lot more socialized sessions, socializing with the players in different capacities outside of football to keep them connected to it. But it's difficult, and it's difficult and near impossible for coaches right now.
Yeah. Gary, let me ask you about because of the Coaches Association, what have you guys been talking amongst yourselves about? Because there's got to be somebody or some people able to do things that kind of can help others to kind of do the same thing, something similar. So have you guys been in conversations with each other about what you can and can't do and helping each other to kind of do sessions and just rubbing off each other?
I mean, speaking for myself, no, I haven't. I actually haven't been in touch with anybody, unfortunately. I think that's more just due to my personal commitments that I have going on between work and, social life and stuff like that. So that's nothing towards the coaching association itself. Actually, I'm looking forward to actually being in contact with them more as I look to get my UEFA B license. That's one of my goals for the next year or two. I would say 2 years, considering COVID's probably put a lot of hiccups in many different administration plans and stuff like that. So that's a goal that I have. But as far as that, no, I can't. I would like to say I have, but going back to what Mason said about the social side, I wish that would be a little bit more of being able to discuss ideas or a bigger platform for coaches and even with the players. But I mean, hate to go back to the COVID. Even Mason said it perfect just then. It's even training drills now are socially distant. So it's like, how do you incorporate it, right? Even as the coach, you have to be socially distant. The players are socially distant. So I think if I had the opportunity to talk to other coaches, I'll be trying to pick their brains on like, what technical drills are you trying to get balanced, technical and tactical, right? So
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm glad you brought that comment. I'm glad you asked that question. You made that statement about what the coach is doing. For instance, last week, I think in the papers were the presidents of the clubs were meeting, right? They had a meeting. But my point is that it tells about our country and the structure of our country, which I always talk about. Let's say is there a coaching committee that has a president that will be talking about, okay, this is what we're going to be doing with the coaches, having meetings. Is that in place in this country? Because I don't think it is. Where they have a separate coaching, just like the referees association.
Coaches have an association with the president, and they have a co. Actually, I think Maceo was a part of that when they first came up.
I was the vice president. I can speak directly to it, right? I'm on the executive. You're absolutely right, because what we have to do right now is give a lot of kudos to what the referee association's done with their referees during this period. You see their social media presence as to improving the referees. So you have to give the referees kudos. The coaching association has not done that. And that's what we should be doing during this period. So you're absolutely right. So that the ball's been dropped from the coaching association to use this period to connect coaches, and maybe create some learning opportunities. And like I said, the referees association have done that. You can see their presence. You can see the referees aiming to be better, to service the game.
But it's never. But to that point, it's never too late, because it's just a matter of sending out something amongst the email with the Coaches Association, just to say, let's have a brainstorm. That could be done via Zoom. That could be done over a week and a half period, kind of thing. Because not everybody might be able to make the one night, so you have it over a couple of nights to kind of encourage that communication and that bond. Because realistically, the coaches we have in the island, they are the ones responsible for the progress of us going internationally as well, because they are with the players more regularly than anything in the national setup. So it's kind of incumbent of the coaches amongst ourselves to ensure that whatever message we're getting at the Western end, you're getting at the Eastern end, you could deliver it a different way, but there's got to be some similarity in how we want to play this game, the Bermuda way kind of thing.
Well, I mean, if I may, credit to Maceo, and I mean, like, I'm just thinking of my own experience the last couple of years. You obviously have Scott Morton, Richard Todd, and a lot of the main focal guys who had that coaching association. I remember when that UFOB first came to Bermuda with the Scottish FA and the program, partnership there. I mean, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to finish it, but it was an excellent setup. You know what I mean? And you could definitely see the principles of what they're trying to get across to the coaches of structuring sessions and the development of sessions. Brilliant, much needed. So I'm not privy to what happened after that as time went on. So I mean, I would love to see that opportunity still here, or what other avenue they can actually offer for me, the coaches, or what avenues we can take. You know what I mean? At all levels. So.
Yeah. But it's that coming together. I think that's what I think Punchy was alluding to. It's the coming together.
Punchy, I agree with Punchy wholeheartedly.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that there's a lot of things that we fall short on in terms of the organization outside of the game when it's not being played.
Agreed.
And the most important, what I've talked to Maceo about, and I will continuously say this over and over again. Yes, there's going to be people that can play this game. Yes, there will be guys that you go on the field and you can have them done on Tuesday and Thursday and have them training. But we're going to have structure, not on the field, but off the field. And this is we falling short a lot in this country now. And I'm going to keep harping on that fact. There was a part in the paper the other day about a young man playing cricket, which I think was great. Colin Thompson did a part, and I read that whole article about this young man with his exactly. But what I'm saying is, what was so great about that is that there's still a concentrated effort by Colin to really show, yes, we're still gonna, even though his cricket season's almost over, but look what that generated. See, for me, again, it's about generating support for where we're going outside of being on the field. That's what we need: a structural program for the referee, for the coaches association, for just about everything, whether it's the under 20, under 17 coaches, under 19 coaches. We just got to be much more structurally. We're going to have a better structure. That's all. And so when we fall into these what's happening now, was still safe, will still know where we're going. Because I still don't believe this country has a direction in everything that where we're going for the next level. I'm just saying this. I really do believe this. We're not.
Right. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick commercial break. But when we come back, Gary, with the pickups that Vasco have had, I want you to ask, how do you feel about your squad's chances in the first division and promotion? We'll be right back.
The use of butter goes back millennia, and its exalted status in the cooking world and in so many kitchens is undeniable. Around 3,000 years ago, ghee, or clarified butter, was developed in India and is the cooking oil of choice in many regions of the subcontinent, and compared to butter has a higher smoke point, reduced dairy solids, and a more robust, nuanced flavor. And to Organic Valley, creators of a certified organic version of this versatile traditional staple. This month we're featuring Organic Valley Ghee Clarified Butter. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
My inspiration to write this book has to do with empowering. I want people to understand what it looks like when you are in a position when you don't have the tools around you. If you know me or don't know me, the game, the beautiful game of football, soccer, is and always was a way out. Still fearful on what to do, what would happen if I say something.
What can we do in this book to incorporate tools to help specifically our group of young people in Bermuda?
Could you imagine doing a read with little people and breaking everything down for them and having them to have a voice and having conversation pieces, if it's chapter by chapter?
And welcome back. So I see you thinking there, Gary. I see you thinking. But he's getting on the spot, guys, because obviously everybody starts on zero, but you got a few pickups.
Yeah, I would definitely say the team that we have this year is completely different than last year. We picked up a good different spine. We picked up a good bit of midfielders, so guys with probably a little bit more experience in the game. So that would obviously go a long way. But that being said, word on the street is a lot of other clubs have picked up some good additions and transfers too. So I probably expect the top 4 or 5 to probably be result-wise, could be very interesting in the first division this year. Between, obviously, you look at last year, Paris and Social Club will still be fighting guaranteed. I heard Wolves have picked up a good bit of transfers. So again, you never know. You never know. I would expect us, if the boys put the effort in and literally fight for it, I can say we should be in the mix. I mean, football's a funny game on any given day, so I'm not gonna make any prophecies right now. I'm not doing that, but I would say that if we put the effort in, we will be in the mix. We will be in the mix. So,
Maceo, just on the surface, what do you think about Vasco's chances? They picked up Sean Braun from PHC. That's a good pickup. You've also picked up Jake Fox. And with the fact that Flanagan's are now out of the league, Gary, did you get any players from them to come over?
No, we haven't. And honestly, we picked up, obviously, you said Jake Fox, Sean Brown. We picked up Lamar Crofton when he's available from Eagles. A couple other gentlemen who have probably played Corona League that have not been in the BFA, but I know they're more than skillfully and physically able to handle themselves in the first division. And, I've reshuffled a couple guys now. I mean, I'm in a position where we have an abundance of players who can play many different positions. So I'm not going to say any superstars, but we have a good mix of capable of guys filling in. So,
what about the availability? I don't know his name, but your goalkeeper, the tall guy, is he still around?
Jaden. I think Jaden. Yeah, funny story about him. I was playing volleyball during the summer, and I tried to hit it over him, and he just smashed it back in my face. And I was like, listen, we need to have a conversation, right? But great young man, like great gentleman, great personality. So he's a great addition to have. And, I mean, he's 6'5" and plays on the national volleyball team. So he's just great reflexes. You know what I mean?
Good hands.
So yeah, so like that being said, if we can spend a couple of weeks to get everybody to gel, you know what I mean, then hopefully we can, you know, have an honest account of themselves. That's what I would like to see. They can have an honest account of themselves, because I'm not sure how the season starts this year. I think the BFA said we're going to have the same schedule as last year. So I don't know if they're going to just start the season fresh. You know, the first game will be in November, or we're just going to jump in where the season would have taken off. But if that's the case, our first 2 games of the season would be against Hamilton Paris and Social Club. First and second from last year. So, you know, and I honestly, I tell the guys, I say it's a win-win situation for us. If you hold your ground and get a result, good start to the season. If things go wrong, and you know, not too wrong, but if something was to go wrong, it's a great learning experience to get out the way early in the season, so you got plenty of time to fix it. So in that sense, there's no real pressure on us to prove ourselves, right? So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting.
Any questions, Mace?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'll make a comment, then I do have a question for Gary. Understanding me, I've studied all the coaches and their culture and their personality and their way of implementing the game. So knowing Gary from the time that he worked with me at North Village, I understand his culture of implementing the game. So there is an expectation from me that Vasco will push for promotion in that league, because what I think Gary will bring is structure and you hear him using language of patterns of play, you know, as to using players in different situations. So what happens in Bermuda, the first person that brings a bit of structure, you know, that changes the dynamics. And we will remember when Gary first took over, you know, Vasco went on a winning spree with the same players. You know, that was just, you know, as a result of bringing structure and saying the right thing at the right time in the right situation, given that right information that changes dynamics. So there is an expectation that Vasco do push for promotion. But that leads me to a question, Gary. You know, with and getting back to COVID and the implementation of the season, now players are going to be required to take a test, a rapid flow test prior to the game. Where does that put you guys, you know, as to the ability to implement something like that? You know, what's your thoughts on the best procedure of it, knowing the touchiness of COVID? You know, the very sensitive subject of COVID, but at some point we're going to have to deal with that sensitive subject to be able to.
And you know, and I mean, I'll answer that from my personal opinion on this one. I'm not going to say this as a representative of Vasco or anything of the sort. I understand people, when it comes to COVID, have their own decisions for why or why not they want to be vaccinated or this or testing. I get everybody to each their own. I can say Vasco majority is 95% vaccinated. So in that sense, as a club, we feel like, and that's not as a club requirement. It's more of the players that made personal decisions. So that's on their half. I think exactly now is interesting because my daughter's at Work Academy, and they have stipulated every Sunday and every Wednesday, each child must take a lateral flow test in order to be allowed back to school. And I only bring that up in the sense where it takes like a minute to get the result. So I'm like, well, that could be definitely used, but I know we talked about earlier about, you know, how to get sport back. Is that something where you can get an immediate answer, you know, and allows, like you said, allows things to function. And I mean, I hate to say it, I get people have freedom of choice, but there's also a part of it if the rules are the rules. You know what I mean? If you don't want to take a test, you can't play. Hey, that's it. Like, I know it goes against people's freedoms if people want to say that, but personally, I mean, there's always a cost and a pro or con to every decision. So it's just something that has to happen for the majority to get the game started. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I mean, I think the testing regime, if we can get it back, I think, yeah, it's got to happen. Personally, because I think sports, like you said, sports majority people are itching to get out there. The mental health that comes along with it. I think honestly, there's sacrifices that have to be made for the greater good. And if it's taking a test every week, I'm sure there's a financial cost that comes along with that in most decisions, unfortunately. But I think we need to really, hey, it is what it is. You're on the boat or not. Right? We got to keep moving. We can't sit around stopping everything for every shade of gray. I think a decision has to be firmly made.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Good point.
Bunch?
Good point. Very good point. Getting back to Gary, I'm sure. I know, as Maceo said, your structure. You know, I'm sure you're very structured in terms of what you're trying to achieve at Vesco. But I'm sure in the heydays of Vesco, when Vesco had Gumbo, and I know they went through a traumatic period of where they just lost, and the club, the whole footballing structure was had just been abandoned. People left. So at Vesco now, what are you seeing at the junior level? Are you seeing a resurgence of this? People wanting to come back to play for Vesco? Are you seeing that? Are you?
I can't really comment too much. Obviously, I was only there for like 2 months. COVID hit. Now I'm back. COVID hit. Right. So, but I do know they have a thriving youth program. There's a lot of interest in it, which is good. I believe from the under 15 level down. So I think obviously it kind of reminds me almost. I've been fortunate that I was playing for Robin Hood umpteen years ago. So you have that, and again I think BAA went through the same thing where you have a youth program, and then unfortunately you get that period where most kids 18 they either stop playing football, they go to university, and so you have that hiatus of life where then they come back. So I'm only bringing that up as far as I know they have the insurgence of the youth to be involved. As far as obviously Vasco, it's like mostly all clubs in Bermuda, very community club, obviously very ethnic orientated, right? As a pushy youth club. So you do have a vast majority of old members whose sons want to play, or the great grandsons are playing, or friends of friends who come in. And it's interesting that you brought that up about Vasco's heyday. And that's one of the things I told the guys at the beginning of this year. I said, you're in a very unique opportunity that if you were, or we were to get promoted, you are now allowing yourself to be part of Vasco's history. So they have to take that challenge on, right? They haven't been in the game for the last 20 plus years. I mean, I was a little kid, 13, and I remember in the 90s, Vasco and, the villages and the games, the night games. So it's an opportunity for them to, and I tell them, prove yourself. Simple as that. This is a chance for you to make a name for yourself and for the club, right? So challenge accepted or not. It's up to you.
I applaud you. I'm come full circle with me asking that question. Now, I've been pretty interested because where I live, I've been always visiting because Wolves train nearby. Wolves is a training session. Now, let me tell you this scenario. Now, I'm going to be straight up so I can be this way.
Be careful. I've got a soft spot for Wolves. I used to play.
I have a soft spot for them.
I hate it. You know what I mean? I like seeing them, but I hate seeing them at the same time.
Right? Now, I'm going to say it anyway. Now, we're talking about structure. Every time I used to go there and watch them train, and I'm going to make this quite clear. I'm not going to keep it long. I used to watch all these bikes and all these players and all these people down there watching Wolves play. And I used to say, why are they in the position that they're in? Because they do have a good. I technically have some good technical players, and I'm saying, well, I know what the problem is: structure. Somebody, when Dennis Bond had them, they just came in, structured them right, and you could see the improvement. Since he's left, there's been a lack of structure. Now, I'm not hating on nobody like this, but I'm talking about what our country is about. Where we can see teams like Vesco, once with Gary there, there's going to be a structure. I do see that if you do get promotion, that you're probably going to get people that will come over to the Vesco. But I don't see, with Wolves, I've heard some players going like Mr. Lee from, I'm going to say it anyway, going from Village, going back to Wolves and helping Wolves. But see, that's okay. But I still think that I'm still harboring on about structure, and Wolves are a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Remember, I'm not picking on them, but it's the truth.
Right.
They have all these people, but they still ended up like I don't know what's. So anyway, I'm not going to go on about this. But Gary, the reason I'm applauding you about this is because we Vesco have a history, and Wolves had a history also. But it seems to be lacking like that, and that's what we're talking about. The dynamics, North Village, PHC structure. Summers is getting back to it. God bless PHC, North Village. I think St. George's are going to come full circle also. So I'm applauding you for what you are trying to achieve. And again, I'm gonna say, like I always tell Maceo, it's about building blocks. Where we're going to go in the next 10 years for the club level, and everybody matters, and all of you matter. So what I'm saying is that when I see that at Wolves, I'm saying something's not right there, and that's the point that I'm making. And I'm bringing that up to you, and I'm saying to you that's what's been lacking in this country. Well, about the structure inside when the players are on the field training, when they come off, what are we doing?
So you know what? Look, two things real quick that come to my mind. One, I appreciate all of you for the confidence in me, right? So if things don't go my way this year, I hope we're still mates. I hope we're still friends. I'm just saying, right?
You gotta come up.
I'm just look, right? I know football's a funny game, so I'm making sure I choose my words carefully, right? Because anything can happen any given day, right?
True.
So, but you know what I think about? It's like so. And I have personal experience on this one, and just like it's that old quote, you know what I mean? What is it? Hard work beats talent, and talent doesn't work hard. Right? I think Bermuda's abundant with that, and to kind of diverse on that, you see a lot of the young Bermudians who go away to England and they get in these academies, and extraordinary great news we're hearing about young Bermudians that travel. And I think exactly what you said, Mr. Deal. Like these guys out there in a structured environment, they're being challenged, they're being pushed, and you're seeing it. You're seeing the mental and the physical. That you're seeing them thrive, right? And I think that's what Bermuda does need. Like, look, I agree with Wolves, man. Probably nothing but talent down there. But it's like you said. I mean, I learned the hardest lesson when I went university as 18 years old, fresh from Bermuda, raw. I had no idea what discipline structure was. I just played football. You gave me the ball, I ran down the wing and got the ball over. Till my coach was like, why are you over there? Why are you not here? 5 yards too forward, 5 yards too left. And you start to realize positioning, movement, not running. The whole thing. Football's a 90-minute game. You're lucky if you're touching the ball for 7 minutes. So what you doing for the other 83, right? So a lot of that comes down, you said, structure, fitness. And I think those are the components that, and I'm sure anybody could agree who's played any football at any worthwhile level, the fitter you are, the more you enjoy the game, right? So you get a good, and I think first division is a prime example. Fitness and structure and discipline. There's three simple things in first division, you're competitive. I think you're competitive. So for a 90-minute game, Sunday by Sunday for one season, you're in the mix. Somehow, some way, you're in the mix. Now, obviously, that being said, if I can get Vasquez to install those three simple things, there's discipline, some fitness, and structure, and then you add in a couple little little tricks up your sleeve here and there, and you got some players who have some experience. Hey, I wouldn't bet against anything on any given day, right? So.
Definitely. Well, Gary, I want to thank you for your time and want to wish you all the best this coming season. It's going to be an interesting one, especially in the first division. We all know the stories about the Premier Division and 3 teams going down. But as you've already indicated, obviously, Hamilton Parish, Young Men's Social Club, Wolves picked up a handful or 2 handfuls of players. You've gotten a little stronger, and there's always going to be that surprise element in there, and the fact that if the season does start as the schedule has, you got the first and second place teams from last season right off the gate. So anything's possible right from the start. Yes.
Hey, baptism of fire, right? And I mean, that being said about Wolves, like you said, I can never discount a lot of people I know at Boulevard as well over the years. Like, it's talent, right? So, I mean, as much it's a challenge, even as the coach, makes you a little bit nervous. Like, okay, we've got some good teams we're gonna have to battle for. But it's also a challenge that I need to rise to. Be like, all right, well, if you're gonna be worth your weight in salt, hey, we gotta put this together, right? So, I think it's also good for the first division. You know what I mean? Only one team's going up, so it's how bad do you want it? Yeah. I think that's gonna be the motto all year. How bad do you want it? And I think the top 5 teams are going to continue.
I believe 2 are going up, or did they say 1?
I heard it was 1 going up, 3 down.
Yeah, 3 down makes it 10.
Okay, well I apologize for that. Okay, my chances got a little bit better then.
Yeah. First and second, mate. First and second.
That's
All
it.
right.
There we go.
Okay.
I
We're gonna
appreciate
take
you guys. Thank you very
Yes,
much. Right.
We're going to take another commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the return to sports, especially for football, and the dilemmas that the association and the clubs will have week by week. We'll be right back.
In preparation for the island's first Youth Climate Summit, the Bermuda Underwater Exploration Institute has partnered with CITV to screen Youth Unstoppable, the only feature documentary to cover the rise of the youth climate movement from the youth perspective. Now the most important voice in the climate debate. The movie will be followed by a live chat with the director, herself a youth activist. Bermuda is the only country in the world premiering Youth Unstoppable on television as part of its global launch. Tune in to CITV this Saturday at 7 p.m.
My inspiration to write this book has to do with empowering. I want people to understand what it looks like when you are in a position when you don't have the tools around you. If you know me or don't know me, the game, the beautiful game of football, soccer, is and always was a way out. Still fearful on what to do, what would happen if I say something.
What can we do in this book to incorporate tools to help specifically our group of young people in Bermuda?
Could you imagine doing a read with little people and breaking everything down for them and having them to have a voice and having conversation pieces, if it's chapter by chapter?
And welcome back. Well, obviously, gentlemen, we've seen the return to sports guidelines, and of course, football being a contact sport, it, like many other contact sports, has other stipulations put on top of them and the challenges they will face each week. I know, Macy, you indicated with Gary earlier about the rapid tests and that. Something of that nature. What are we talking cost-wise per week for a club or the association?
Yeah, we had a meeting with the BFA to advise them of what that costs, and not just the BFA, all the sporting bodies. So at this point in time, these tests are being able to be landed to Bermuda, depending on what you buy in bulk, between $5 and $7, I believe it is. That's what you're looking at for per test. So you can imagine that's a serious additional cost to operate sports for everybody if we're talking about testing everybody on competition day. And testing everybody on competition day is across the board in sports. Is across the board in sports. This model is what other jurisdictions have done to keep sports running. They're tested and tested. That has been the way, and they are tested both the vaccinated and the non-vaccinated. So, for instance, the EPL, because of the financial clout and the financial part of the EPL, they are taking PCR tests weekly before competition. Whereas some of the grassroots outside of Bermuda, in the United States and the UK, they're using these rapid flow tests to allow the grassroots competitions to continue. So literally, you could show up on the day of competition 3 hours before, take your test, get your result, and play. Our challenge in Bermuda becomes the privacy of this testing. Our challenge in Bermuda becomes, and it also our challenge in Bermuda becomes, if somebody reports positive, how do we link it back to our government system? So we have to create some sort of cross system to link a positive result back to and that potentially puts more responsibility on the national bodies.
It's interesting you say that, and I see Punchy grinning, because sports is now being treated just a little different. And I say that because if you go out for dinner, all you have to do is show your safe key, and you're allowed in. But if I want to play football, you're not worried about a safe key anymore. I still have to take the test. Yes? Or if I wanted to play hockey, if I wanted to play a sport. So where is the consistency in social and sport? There has to be some consistency across the board. You can't say, oh well, because you're playing a sport, you have to do this. But then I could turn around and go to a club with the spectators that were there, or everybody using the safe key, and we're all straight. So you know what I mean? It's gotta be some consistency across the board, and I just think that we have to come to a common ground of what this would look like. I know the people in the health department are looking out for the safety of people. I know that. However, you can't separate, again, the social element from the sports element.
You know, and I agree with you. I agree with you from my personal position. And that leads me to a bigger conversation about what sports means or doesn't mean to our country. You know, because we have to get to a point where sports is very, very important to our country. And the grassroots piece of it is very, very important to our country. And I'm going to use the word that sports is being given privileges in our country to operate. So I've learned now in our country, as you like sports, Punchy likes sports, I like sports, but as a country, we're still impregnated with sports. We're not been born with sports. We're not walking and running with sports yet as a country. We are more social as a country. So even if you go to our sports clubs, there are more social clubs than sports behaviors. So straight across the board. So the country is showing you what it is by saying it's okay to socialize, but we're not yet there with sports yet. We're not yet there with sports. And these platforms, people like you, me, and positions of punching pit that we have to hold, we do have to start lobbying the importance of sports. And we're going to see Florida tomorrow, right? And that's important.
Yeah.
That's important to our country. You know, that's important to our country, and sports is important to our country. And we you're right, we have to start rolling out the privileges for sports people. And Uncle Punchy would know that because 40, 50 years ago, there were privileges for sports people. We have to figure out getting that back to the front.
Totally agree with you, Mace. Well put, Mace. Well put. I'm very glad for what they're doing for Flora Duffy, which is so good. But also about what Maceo said. Him and I spoke about this also. What our country is about when it comes to sporting. Like what direction do we want to go as a country? Advocating how important sports are to our society. Advocating it and doing something about it. So that's where I think we fall short also. We've been falling short on that. What direction the country follows. For instance, like what it's like down in Trinidad or Jamaica, or just like in the European countries. What do they put? What is they put emphasis on, and what does it mean to their culture? And I think that's a point that Maceo has made. That what does it mean to us? The other factor in this is what I was getting back to the point about the COVID test and all that. What does it do financially for the club? So Maceo, players who will pay for players to be tested? Is that free, or who foots that bill?
It's being transferred to the national bodies.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, I see. That's a very important factor in there.
So some sports, especially if they're contact sports, may end up going away. Because you just won't be able to afford it.
Yeah, that's a big conversation. The affordability.
Exactly.
It's a big conversation. The affordability of being able to run sports. It is a big conversation, and different national bodies are seeking different avenues of sponsorship to be able to do that. Also there is hopefully going to be a conversation about collaboration between the 24 national bodies to be able to order testing kits in bulk, which would drive down the prices. So there also should be an advocate from the national bodies to advocate on behalf of what their position is. Now, football potentially could advocate to get testing kits through FIFA, so that there are programs through FIFA that football can get testing kits. And other national bodies have programs through their international bodies that they can get testing kits. Also, the possibility of sports becoming holistic is we know that our young athletes are going to be tested in school systems. So sports and school can collaborate together to make sure that the athletes are being tested. So if they're already being tested in school systems, that is going to cover the test for also sports. So that could lower the cost of it, but let's be clear, there will be additional costs that the national bodies have to figure out to be able to implement, sports. Now, Solstice is transferring that cost to the individual in their school fees. Can football do that? Probably not, isn't it?
Point. Exactly.
Sports that are a little bit more financially, or a lot more financially stretched, probably not. So, but it's an ongoing conversation of course.
And I know it's important to understand that this cost structure is most sports, and I would say 85 to 90% of the sports in this country depend on some form of government grant, which they stretch already. Now looking at another bill on top of the bills that they've already had that they couldn't pay because of having to be closed, having to all the other stuff that's been going on. I just think you may just see some, if not the sport, persons, clubs, organizations just not returning to it because financially they're not in a position to ask, as you've indicated, Maceo. Soltis has put that finances on the parent. A lot of these organizations that run national sports in Bermuda, they've already put enough on the parent. They put enough on their own, on their own self. Just trying to get it done. I just think it's going to be an enormous task. And the unfortunate thing is, you may end up seeing more antisocial. This and this is part. It has to be part of the conversation. There may be more antisocial things going on because we can't afford to put them in a structured program, they end up on the street in unstructured programs.
These are all valid conversations. These are all valid conversations.
That's right. And it's funny how you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that subject up because they're all interrelated. Yeah. Everything's interconnected. They're all interrelated. Whether we want to believe this, and I said, Andrew said it, Kenny said it, Maceo has preached this. Most important, what does our country structure in terms of how does it affect us, our society? And so it's coming down to the test where, while these questions, it's been said before when we were in quote unquote before this pandemic, but they were saying this, they were talking about this years ago. I've heard the conversation, but I'm saying now it's hit us right, they hit us smack in the face. Now, what are we going to do about it? We should have already been planning for this here. And so now, but there's always a way out. We just got to keep our heads up, keep going, come up with solutions.
Collaboration. And, the key is collaboration.
And collaboration is what the show is about, what we talk about. And putting people to task who are not pulling the weight. That's who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, definitely.
I have a funny thing just to share with you guys as it relates to the pandemic and get back. I'm just changing lanes a little bit and going back to the Connie matches, cricket, right? Because I was obviously the officer that was running the sports testing, right, at Bay for all the players and the staff to get a safety. What you saw in the power of sports Now we know at clubs you have people that don't know that it's COVID vaccination even happening. We know that we have people in Bermuda that couldn't care less about, am I vaccinated? Am I not vaccinated? Do I need a test? Should I get a test? We know who those people are.
Yes.
Well, those people were coming to me to get vaccinated and asking me to give them a shot right now so they can go to the cricket game down there. That is the power of sports.
Yeah.
They learned and said, "Deal, give me a test. I want a test right now. Give me a test." Then, because that's the power of sports. Sports had that power. They wasn't listening to what the science were saying. They wasn't listening to what the government were saying. They wasn't listening.
They wanted to go to the sporting event.
What their parents or what their friends were saying. But they was listening to, it's a Connie game down Bay. I need to go, and I can't swim around to get there, and I need a test.
Yeah.
Deal, give me a test. And more deal, give me a shot right now. But that's the power of sports, and I say that because we are in a dilemma in our country, sporting wise, and I'm hoping the power of sports comes to the forefront to help move us forward.
Yes.
That's why I say those things too, because sports is that powerful.
Well, I mean, we will see it tomorrow amongst ourselves. We'll be celebrating. Bermudians will be celebrating. But then we can also utilize the fact that we have some international events about to happen as well, and utilize our power on land, on island, to also make the powers that be understand that if we can have international competition, we should be able to have domestic competition.
Right.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Hey, you fellas, I'm gonna change a little bit. It's getting close to any time anyway.
Sure.
I just want to say it's for us all. I don't know. Sorry, I'm not taking the cheer from you. I want to give kudos to Sean Goodall for his appointment.
Yes.
And I wanted to say this earlier in the show, but I want to say that I'm very happy for him, just like the Duffy. It just goes to show you that even from a country our size, what we can produce. And it's something that a lot of young coaches should be looking at in terms of if they want further education, whether they stay in Bermuda or whatever. But Sean that just shows a perfect example. To be given a job at the academy in Manchester City says quite a bit, even though it's quote unquote about having with this change the structure of having different racial makeup of the coaching staff.
Our sports again.
Yeah.
Exactly. Our sports again. So the point that I'm saying is that kudos to him, even though he's been thrust in there because of that. But I still thought that it just a great appointment. And the other thing is that added to that with Sean and so many others. So that's why I believe I'm so happy, because I believe the future of this country is really in the next 10 years it's going to be like, wow, can we do this? Yes, we can. Because let's say Maceo son, I mean, the amount of young boys that are overseas, playing in England, playing in Europe. I mean, I just think it's just that the structure get these people being connected, so that we can go to another level now. So maybe here we go. It's like, wow, it's like Flora Duffy can have an academy here to produce some or whatever, academy or some, like we could produce another one of her. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. I just wanted to say that, you guys. Sorry about that.
Bring that up about Sean.
I just see the future of this country being, even with what we're going through, kudos to Sean Goodall, Johnny Barchel, and all the rest of them are doing so well overseas. Yeah, that's what I want to say.
It's interesting you talk about Sean, because I remember hearing a lot of comments when he was coaching locally and coaching at North Village. Some of the remarks made by, spectators and so forth. I'm saying, okay, here's a guy that's played at the top level. He's done his coaching. He's come back to give back. He could be somewhere else like he is now, doing so many other things, but he's come back here to help. And I just think we as a country don't take full advantage of the people that go to the top level and then come back and we don't cherish them like we should. We don't give them the opportunity to share the knowledge, to share the talent, to tell you the honest truth, whether or not the only way you could make it is if you do this, you do that. Because as we know, there's a lot of young men and a lot of young ladies who are off the island right now, either in academies or in university or college, but they've had to make a lot of adjustments mentally and personally, because as Gary said, when he showed up to college, it was just football. But then you've got to do all these other things that you never did when you were here. And especially if you look at it, okay, so Maceo, your son's out there, he's been out there for a while. Independence. You've got to learn that right away. Responsibility. You've got to learn that right away. It might appear you have it in Bermuda, but until you get out there and everybody leaves you and you're on your own, you've got to make your time. You've got to be, for school, for training, for games, for everything must be in place. So you're learning that from a young age. And I think that's the key that we need to make sure that anytime Sean comes back, anytime Flora's in this island, anytime any one of our major athletes, we spend time with them finding out what it is like. What did it take? Tell me the truth. Tell our kids the truth. It's not easy. It's not. You're going to spend some time crying. Exactly. You're going to spend some time wondering whether or not what I'm doing is right. Because you're going to always have that doubt. It's how you come out the other side. And I think that's what we need to make sure that we do with all our athletes and especially our young people. And no matter what sport it is, because we learn from other sports. We learn so much from other sports. Just by watching it. I'm pretty sure as coaches, if you watched volleyball and watched the rotations, you say, oh, okay, well, we could try this in football. Or you watch netball. Okay, yeah, we could use this. We could, all of that. We have to start utilizing what little tools we have on the island and our resources, because any one of us, I'm pretty sure, can text Sean right now. It's a bit late, but we could text him right now and he'll say hello. That's resources right at our fingertips.
That's it. Yeah. I'm sorry to bring that up, but I'm not sorry to bring it up, but I'm saying that's a good, and it also pulls. I'm sorry, Macy. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Macy. Go ahead.
No, I'm glad you did, right? Because again, it leads to the power of sports. You know that in the UK, they've been taking a knee against racism, and they're going farther than taking a knee. Said we can't talk about it no more. We've got to see some changes. Yeah. Sean Gooder is a benefit of that change now. And who cares how you get there? What we care about is what you do when you're there.
Yeah.
And Sean, we know Sean, he used to put the ball in with his knee, his shin, but he's got over 100+ goals for Man City. He's a legend.
A girl.
The Rockets are speaking for himself.
That's right.
So it's there. So again, the power of sports, and we in Bermuda are becoming a lot more comfortable using these type of platforms to speak loudly about lobbying for the improvements of sports in our country. And the shift. So I feel positive about it. I feel positive. I'm in position to help with the challenge of moving sports along. Because it is a challenge.
It is a challenge, Maceo, and it is. And the thing is, adding to before we go, because years ago when it was weekend and they had the players in the papers, Mid Ocean News. What do you want to do with your life and all that stuff? Because that's all they're doing now. You don't see that much reporting done like that. So now, this program that we are having now is going to at least mention stuff like that. Mention how it's important for the club structure to be so good now in such a small place like this that eventually we're going to actually turn on another Sean Gooder. We're going to turn on another Flora Duffy. That's why structure is so important. So we come full circle to what we're talking about. Structure. It don't come overnight. It ain't gonna come overnight. But the importance of programs like this and people like ourselves is that it's got to be said, and the people got to listen. And I think, add to what you said, when Sean Goodell first came back here, Sean Goodell was, I went to go see his training session. He says, Punch, now goalkeepers have to learn to pass the ball good, and then playing three at the back and playing wing halves. I seen, what are you talking about, Sean? He was telling me that before. So there you go. So that is a lesson that I learned, because I wasn't even know what he was. I was saying, wow. So it's we're just learning. We're learning, and I think we must continue on with shows like this. Be very do our research, do what we can, Earl, with Maceo and myself, and just keep asking me questions. And I think that's going to be the goodness of the show. That's why I said I intended to do the show for this reason. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, with football looking like it's on the horizon, it's time to get excited.
I'm getting excited
because obviously we get to pick our teams a week in advance, see how we do. Maceo last week indicated that he picks PHC to win the league. Punchy, I'll give you a week to think about it. And Vance, no, I'm not going to say who I think this week. I'll save it. So I might save it to week 20. But gentlemen, we'll be back next week with another edition of the Islandstad Football Show. Have a safe week. Enjoy the festivities this week with Flora, and obviously next week, Flora Duffy Day, but it'll be after the show. So hopefully we get an update on a date that football is going to start and what the season and league structure will look like. All right? Enjoy the rest of the evening, gentlemen. Folks, have a good night.
Have a good night.